So welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Karen Corman and I have the privilege of being the Executive Director of the UIC Alumni Association. Welcome to the UIC Alumni Exchange Series. We are hosting weekly events that bring you news, knowledge, and entertainment to help you explore, connect, and even escape from the everyday with a community of UIC alumni, staff, and faculty experts. You'll hear me say this a few times today, but I encourage you to visit go.uic.edu/alumni exchange for the latest and greatest programming. And with that, I am excited to start our program this evening by welcoming Erica Jones, who is a certified Design Your Life coach, who will introduce us to a framework to help design your career. Thank you, Erica, for being with us this evening, and I'll turn it over to you to begin the presentation and discussion.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you all of you for joining us. I know where I am, I'm in the northern suburbs, I'm in Libertyville, and it is almost pitch black out here. It's really, really raining. I know that some of us might not be from this area, but calling in right now, I know that the weather is crazy. I know that it's 7 o'clock here, so I hope that you all had a great day, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us this evening. So what are we going to be talking about, and what on earth is a Design Your Life coach? That's kind of a mouthful. Tonight, for the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about how to think about success in this current sort of post-COVID world that we're all living in. I know that we've said the word unprecedented more times than I can care to even listen to anymore. People are saying things like the new normal. Our lives have changed significantly. And I know, myself included, my whole career life, my whole sort of plan, everything has gone out the window. So really honored to be here tonight to spend some time talking about how we might reframe success when thinking about our career. So a little bit about me. I have a lot of pictures here. I also have those, acronyms and titles in the lower right-hand side because I know those are important too. But what's really important on this screen are a couple of things. Some pictures of my life, my family. I did get a BA in humanities way back in '96. And then I got a master's degree later on in my life when I chose to make a career change. I studied career management in the United Kingdom, which is why you can see some of those flags there. I loved my time living there. I have a partner named Joe. We love to travel. That's a picture from one of our trips last year. I can't believe that was only last December. It feels like years ago now. Just with everything that's changed in the world. And then we've got a picture of my dog, Jana. She's a rescue pit. She's 12. She acts like she's 2. She's really, really the love of my life. And also there's a picture of me in front of a 767 jet engine. Why on earth is that there? My most recent job was teaching leadership development at United Airlines. Prior to that, I spent about 20 years working in the people development field. I've worked in a variety of industries, consulting, higher ed, defense contracting. And really, if that girl in the lower left-hand side of the screen had any idea that she would be standing in front of a 767 jet engine in Houston in July, a couple of years later, she really would have laughed. So my career has taken a whole lot of twists and turns. I think I have been truly trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up since someone asked me that first question when I was 5. So thank you for letting me talk about that with all of you tonight. So where did it all start, and what does that whole Design Your Life coach thing come from? So last year when I was traveling, I did a lot of traveling in my work as a leadership facilitator at United. I was in a lot of airports. I was in Houston, I was in Cleveland, I was in Newark, and I was always walking through the bookstores because I was always seeking information. Again, always trying to figure out, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? How can I help other people figure that out? And I picked up this book called Designing Your Life. And some of you that have signed on to be here tonight, maybe you've read this, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've read some articles about it. I'm going to explain just a little bit about sort of the beginnings of it and really why I think this framework in terms of how we want to think about our careers can really be impactful. So this book was authored by 2 gentlemen who actually worked at Stanford. And what they did at Stanford was they decided to they taught product design there. So these gentlemen taught how to think about things like, how do we want to design cell phones? How do we want to design applications that can really help our lives? Product design. They decided to take those same principles when thinking about how we want to create products, and they sort of wanted to apply those to maybe we can think about our lives in that same way. When we think about what makes design great, why haven't we thought about that in terms of our own life? So the really cool thing, I picked up this book And you know how you pick up those books at the airport on self-development, you put it in your bag, maybe you flip through a couple of chapters and there's some exercises and activities and you think, yeah, I'll do that. This was a book that I actually read every page, did every exercise, and I found it to be one of the most useful and relevant tools in my career. And this is coming from someone that studied career counseling in graduate school. So I put the book down and I figured out, you know what, I want to take this further. I want to get my coaching certification. And that's what I did. So what is the framework? What are we going to be talking about? We're not going to solve everything in an hour tonight, but we're going to talk a little bit about what design thinking is. Before we do that though, I would love to ask the magic question, and this is an anonymous poll that will come up. I think Jessica's going to get that ready for us. How are you feeling about your career right now? If you were thinking about, if you could just name it in a couple of phrases, I've got about 7 choices up there for you right now. And again, this is anonymous. If you want to choose more than one, you can. We've got a couple of answers coming in. A couple of you are excited. That's wonderful. Some of you are frustrated, overwhelmed. Career, what career? Yep. A lot of folks in the nervous section. Yep. We've got about 80% of the group has voted so far. All right, poll is closed. So let's take a look at these results. Really, really interesting. And thank you so much for sharing right away. I know we just met, it's early in the evening, but thank you for opening up and sharing a little bit more about your life. So we've got about 7% of you really excited. You love where you're at. That's fantastic. About 20% of you feeling good. You like it. Same with about, I'm okay. I'm not quite sure how I feel. 29% of you are nervous. I'm really not sure what the future holds. And that's, in fact, I'm surprised that's not higher right now with everything that's going on in the world. Some of you are frustrated. You might be feeling that you're stuck and things are hard. Some of you are overwhelmed. And some of you are thinking, career, what career? So thank you again for sharing. What's really interesting about all of these feelings and all of these experiences is no matter where you are right now, whether you're excited, whether you're thinking, I don't even have a career, I don't even know where to start, this framework can work for you. What I really, really like about it is it can be applied at any stage, at any part of our lives. A little bit of full transparency, a couple of months ago, in fact, when I was talking with Karen and the team about putting this session together and talking with all of you, I was on the edges of getting a promotion at United. I was looking at a really cool new opportunity. I was getting really excited. I was going to be doing something that was really going to be really energizing and motivating. And then this thing called COVID happened, and I had to step away from my position in United in June. So suddenly, I'm looking at an entirely different world. So if I were to answer this question with all of you right now, I would say I'm excited because something I've decided to do is start my own business. I would also say that I'm completely overwhelmed at all the things I have to learn when thinking about that. And quite frankly, I'm terrified. I have no idea where my paychecks are going to come from. I have a tiny little bit to get me until hopefully some other stuff happens, but I'm feeling a lot of things right now. And as we can see, when we talk to each other and when we look at this, a lot of us are all over the board. So what can we do about it? How can we sort of change our thinking? The really cool thing about this framework is it's all about a mindset. So this is really a new framework. It's a new way of thinking about career. So if some of you were to, if I were to ask all of you, I wish I could ask all of you, but there are 84 of you, so I can't. But if I could ask all of you, you know, when you thought about career early on in your life, I remember when I was in school, when I was younger, I had to take a lot of assessments. And when I finished those assessments, someone would give me a list and say, Erica, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. It seemed a little bit linear. It seemed sort of like I was in a box a little bit. And sometimes it was really frustrating. So the cool thing is this framework, when we think about design, design is all about mindset. So when we look at, for example, when we think about how we want to maybe design something like a new cell phone, the first thing when we're thinking about product design is we want to empathize and think about what does a customer need? So if we're thinking about, you know, a potential user of a cell phone, what might that person be looking for? Then we define that. Here are the specifications when we're creating this new tool. These are all the different things that people want. Maybe we do some brainstorming, we ideate. Then we prototype, we build examples, samples, and then we test. So that's what design thinking is. This is all about how we bring products to market. So when Bill Burnett and Dave Evans were talking at Stanford, they decided, how do we use that same idea and apply it to our lives? So let's take all of these things and let's break it down a little bit. When we think about empathy, empathizing is really empathizing with ourselves. The first tenet of this is to start wherever you are. And again, we just saw with that poll that we're all in different spots in our career. Some of us are excited, some of us are worried, some of us don't know. Thinking about where you are, understand that that's okay, and understand your viewpoint. Then the next step in this process is to think about what is a problem that you might want to solve. One of my problems that I want to solve right now is, how am I going to make some money? I'm not necessarily thinking right away of how am I going to have an entirely different new career, but how might I make some money? Then we ideate. So then we think about, how do we want to brainstorm? How might we want to create different ideas, maybe odyssey plans, different ways of thinking about our journey. And then we prototype. Then we think about all those different things. Oop, and my computer, I didn't catch up with myself. When we think about prototyping, this is when we test. So for example, if I'm thinking about starting a new business, something that I might do after brainstorming an idea around that is I might prototype by testing an idea. Maybe I want to create a small class. Maybe I want to offer it to a group of colleagues and see what happens. And once I do that, then I can sort of tweak some things and test it again. Ultimately, this whole thing comes down to talking to people and trying stuff. Now, I love this because it's simple. Oftentimes we think of career as complicated things. They are complicated things, but we can also think about career in terms of elegant simplicity. When I look back on my career, and again, I studied career management in grad school. I remember learning theory after theory after theory about how and why we choose our work. There was one theory that really struck me when I was in school. It was something called the happenstance theory. And what that is we tend to sort of show up and roll with what comes at us. That's very, very similar to design thinking. We actively think about things, we brainstorm, then we allow ourselves to sort of get pulled into things, trying things, testing things. It's very, very action oriented. There's a bias to sort of collaborating with others, getting some ideas and trying things out. I've been talking a lot. Karen, I don't know if there's anything in the chat that we want to talk about. Are there any questions so far? Big ideas, I know, for a Wednesday night. I think it's Wednesday. All the days are kind of blending together right now.
They all do blend together. I haven't seen anything yet, but if participants have questions, please go ahead and put them in chat. And maybe what I can do, Erica, is just sort of do this if there's a question that comes, and when it's appropriate for you to pause, we can do that.
Great. I just feel like I've had a little extra coffee today, so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. Wonderful.
Great.
So yeah, this is really the framework. One of the things, when we're putting sort of that designer hat on, our careers, I think I mentioned, sometimes can feel really complex. When you right now are sitting where you are, you're thinking about so many different things. A career is not in a vacuum. All of us right now, we're having to navigate, how do we deal with our career? How do we deal with family members? How do we deal with small creatures in our home, whether or not they're dogs or children? There are people that need things from us right now. There are things happening in the world that are very unsettling, that are very difficult to process. Designers like problems. Designers approach problems with innovation, with creativity. So shifting that mindset, rather than thinking about, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming, there's so much to think about, that's what a designer calls a wicked problem. And a wicked problem is a good thing because it means that you've got some spaghetti that you can untangle. So a wicked problem might be something that has a lot of interdependent qualities. Things are, if you start pulling at one thread, everything sort of has a chance to unravel. The challenging thing about that is, as we know, standard problem solving doesn't really work when this happens. So something that we want to do to gain deeper insight is this idea called reframing. So there is a lot of power in this idea of reframing. And when I say reframing, what I mean by that is choosing to approach a challenge or a problem with a different point of view. When I've taught for many, many years. I've facilitated a lot of different classes. I like to teach a lot of communication classes. Oftentimes I teach about the power of perspective. When we're looking at something from one perspective, sometimes we forget that there can be another way of looking at it. So one key aspect to being successful in terms of looking at these challenges with a designer mindset is to reframe some of the current beliefs that we might be holding on to. And again, I know this is all said and done, and this isn't about being Pollyanna-ish or, no, everything's gonna be great. Not about that. It's about how might I approach this challenge differently? How can I change my perspective? So I know one of my challenges early on, I remember when I was about 25, 26, I was really confused. I thought, wow, everybody around me seems to have it all figured out. I feel like I'm supposed to be an adult by now. But at the time, I had no idea. I'm still figuring it out. But at that time, I thought, wait a minute, this world is telling me this, but is that really true? The reality is we're not always going to know where we're going, but we can know if we are headed in the right direction. We know if we're on the right road. We may not know exactly what building we're going to bump into, but we usually know when we're walking in the right path. I knew when I was 25, I was not going to be in a job that had a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of formulas and a lot of math. I knew that. I was at least on a road when I took my first job that I wasn't going to be doing that. I didn't know what I was going to be doing yet, but I knew that I was headed in the right direction of creativity, of working with people. So the first aspect is changing any of those challenging beliefs that we have and reframing them. Another challenging belief, work isn't supposed to be fun. And maybe work hasn't been fun for you for a while. I know that I was married in a former life, and I remember every Saturday we had to do the bills, and it was a very unfun day. I grew up in a family that was very creative, and when we did the bills, we played music and we brewed a pot of coffee, and it wasn't so bad. So I remember saying to him, hey, bills can be fun. He said, no, they can't. I said, all right, can we reframe this? No, okay, I'm gonna move out. No. But what happens when we reframe, when we take that thought, work isn't supposed to be fun, maybe we wanna switch it to, you know what, I can use enjoyment as a guide. Not all parts of work are fun. We get money, it's a job. We have parts of it that aren't fun, but maybe we can start to think about, what do I enjoy? Can I add some of that to my life? Another dysfunctional belief is I'm stuck. I have no idea where I'm going. I have no ideas. I'm stuck. And again, I've been there too. I've been in all of these places. But reframing that to sort of change your mindset, you know what? I can generate a lot of ideas. I always think back to that 7-year-old girl, the one that could come up with 1,000 ideas. I remember playing with rocks down the sidewalk with my neighbor. How on earth did we come up with so many ideas? We do have the power to generate ideas. Another common sort of dysfunctional belief that we also have is, I have to find that one right idea, sort of like holding out for that right relationship. We want to hold out for that right career idea. But the real sort of true reframing of that is, you know what? We have a lot of different good ideas. There are a lot of different paths that we can take. So when we think about reframing, reframing is something that can really, really help us sort of get back in terms of perspective and just realize that we might need to see something from a different point of view. One of the biggest challenges when we think about reframing or when we think about a dysfunctional belief in terms of work is the aspect of choosing money or meaning. So when we think about money, we might think that we have to choose money or we have to choose having a job with meaning. I've been in this position too, but that's that current belief. I must choose money or I must choose meaning because I can't have both. However, if we reframe that, money and meaning are just different measurements of what I value. So when we think about this question, a lot of career angst comes, I think, when we ask the wrong questions. We worry about things that we've been taught, we've been conditioned to worry about. The world tells us we've got to climb the ladder, we've got to be successful, we've got to make the money. But in reality, meaning and creating and money means different things for each of us. So one way to look at this, one of the tools in the book is something called creating a work view and a life view. So when we think about how do we want to show up in the world, what does work mean to us? What does life mean to us? So often we talk about work-life balance, but the reality is, as we look in our lives now and what's happened over these last couple of months, our work lives and our home lives are enmeshed. So thinking about it differently, what do we want out of those different environments? What is our purpose? And is the work that we're doing in alignment with that purpose? When we can start to get clear about those values, and when we're living in coherence with those values, we tend to find a little bit more meaning and satisfaction in our lives and in our careers. So again, all of this stuff is big, heavy thoughts for a Wednesday night. But there's one fun tool that I wanted to talk about that can help us think about this dichotomy of money versus meaning. And it might help us think a little bit more creatively about how we might want to approach our career design mindset. So that tool is called the Maker Mix. So hopefully some of you, I'm not sure if any of you have ever been a DJ or if you've ever had one of those really incredible, I'm going to date myself, if you've had a really incredible stereo system with all the dials. I know that I used to get in trouble. My dad was a musician and I would change the dials on his recording stuff and he did not like that. But each one of us, when we turn up the volume on that song that we love so much, our dials are going to be at different places. My partner Joe, he really likes the treble in a way that I can't handle it. No, I got to change that. It's the same thing when we think about our careers and when we think about our lives. There are lots of different ways in which that we make meaning. One of the big questions, right, that makes us uncomfortable in the career world is the question, what do you make? Nobody likes to answer that. We shouldn't ask that out loud, right? That's a taboo question, but it's so often we're judging ourselves or we're judging the people around us, like, what do you make? I'm going to invite everyone on this call to sort of shift this mindset and think about reframing. Designers love to make. How do we move away from that? What do you make in terms of the money? How do we move away from that into the, what do you want to make in your life? If you look at these 3 bars here, you'll see that they're represented by money, impact, and expression. So money, when we think about making money, that's traditionally what we think about in the commercial marketplace. So a for-profit business. We tend to work there and we make money. That middle bar, the impact bar, that's usually associated with the world of nonprofit. So usually when we're thinking about working in that space, we're thinking about making meaning. What are we doing to help social justice? What are we doing to solve hunger, to work with animals? What are we doing that makes that impact on society? Then when we look at expression, we're looking at the creative economy. So when we're thinking about that, we're thinking about how might I want to express myself in the world? Are there gifts that I want to contribute? Now, we're not saying that we're going to solve everything that, I'm going to just not make any money and I'm going to just live off of my painting. That's not necessarily something that's realistic. But when we think about this, what I'm going to invite everyone to do is to think about how we might want to change the way that we're measuring our lives and what do we want to twist? What do we want to adjust in those dials? For me right now, I'm not making a lot of money. My money bar is low, but hopefully I'll be able to make some impact in the work that I'm doing. And I'll be able to do some expression as well. If I'm able to, when I need to adjust those dials, maybe I take on a contract job. Maybe I work at Starbucks for a month. Maybe I work at a company for a couple of years and then go back to the idea of starting my own business. The beautiful thing right now, and I think the the beauty of all of this change in the world, what it has afforded us is the ability to sort of redesign and think about our lives in different ways. We will not have, all of our resumes will be different. If we look a couple of years down the road, what's happening now is really going to change how our 2022 selves are going to look, how our 2025 resumes are going to look. And that's okay. I think so often we worry about the shoulds. We should do this, we should take this next job. The beautiful thing is that playing field is different now, and we all have the ability to really sort of shake things up and start to turn the volume up on those dials that really sort of resonate with us. I'm going to stop talking again right now and see if there are any questions or any comments. If any of this is resonating with you, if this is like, yeah, this is cool, or ooh, I want to know more about that. Anything so far?
We've had a couple questions come in. So the first question I think goes back to a couple slides, which is, what are some strategies to empathize with yourself to understand what you might not yet see in yourself?
Ooh, I love that. So I actually am a big fan, when we think about what we might not see in ourselves, I'm a big fan of asking the people around us. I really am. I do a lot of strengths coaching. I work with the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment, and something that, that's a very illuminating assessment as well. What I usually have people do is ask their closest friends and family, hey, what do you think I'm good at? And also, what are the areas, when you think about the people that come to you for advice, that come to you and ask you certain questions all the time, those are usually clues to your gifts, to your unique talents. I didn't realize early on in my career, I was always, I started my career at a company. I answered phones, I answered benefit questions. And I was the one that got all those escalated callers, all the people that were really, really mad. And I had to answer the phone, and I listened to people yell at me for a long time. And it was okay, because I for some reason, I didn't think about it, but I have a lot of empathy. And I remember I had a colleague say to me, how can you do that? And I say, how can you do pension calculations all day? I can't do that. So thinking about maybe taking some quiet time for yourself, because I think that's key too. We don't really take time to be still and to really reflect on, when I'm doing things, when I'm in the flow, what am I doing? There are a lot of tools in this book, and I can't believe I didn't mention this at the beginning, and I'm so sorry, but this book is going to be the book club, featured book club pick for the Alumni Association beginning July 20th. And this is a great book. There will be several tools that you can interact with in the book that can help you get some of that thinking. A lot of good brainstorming, a lot of good Odyssey planning, but really ask people around you. What do you see in me? What do you see that I uniquely do? And think about what people come to you for. That's one way to start.
I think that's great. And I also think it just would bring positivity, because again, not seeing some of the things that people see in you.
Yeah, we're so hard on ourselves. It's amazing how we're all so quick to see all the stuff that we don't do, but we forget all the things that are easy. And that's the thing too. I have a funny allegory that I tell some of my career coaching clients. I say, be the beach ball. When we're playing with a beach ball in the water, or we're playing in the stands at a football game, we're throwing that beach ball around, and it's light and it's playful. And when we go home from that kind of play, we're exhausted. But it's not the same kind of exhaustion as if you're holding the beach ball underwater, because that's not what a beach ball does. That's not what a beach ball is made to do. It's exhausting, it's tiring. That's a different kind of exhaustion. So paying attention to when you're tired, but that playful tired, right?
Oh, that's great. Okay, another question. This person says, I'm having a difficult time convincing potential employers that I want to try my hand at full-time employment after 3.5 decades of running my own successful business.
Ooh.
Meaning the person doesn't need to be in the driver's seat anymore to be happy, and they're not going to bolt. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. One of the key things in the book, they talk about, like when we talk about job searching or making that pivot, making that career change, so often we can sometimes do it in a very transactional way. Maybe we see a job, something that we want to apply for, and that can be a difficult sell, taking all of this experience and how do we pivot that to that new sell. I would say one thing to do is to think about who can you talk to in terms of interviewing. Like tell me, for example, if you see a full-time position at a company that you want to go for, who do you know at that company, or how can you use your your network, your relationships to talk to people, to share your story and to get their story. Again, it's not about applying for the job or getting that interview at that point, but it's about, hey, tell me a little bit about working full-time. I'm really interested in switching gears because as I enter this new chapter, I'm realizing that the things that I value really align with working for an organization. So I think twofold, talking with your network, telling your story, getting their story, tell me what it feels like to work. That way you'll be top of mind, and also getting really clear about the values that you have that align with that new work. And any chance you can sort of talk about your experiences in alignment with those values. That's something that I had to do actually when I pivoted. I had a global director level position in talent management. And then I pivoted to a facilitator job at United, which was, someone would say a backward step. I never say backwards. I say we change lanes. We don't ever go backwards. There's so much that we take with us. And something that I had to verbalize in that experience, because it was definitely a change in compensation. It was a change in title. But I said, really, what brings me joy is when I am able to contribute to learning, education, facilitation, coaching. And doing this as a facilitator, I'm going to be more impactful than if I'm sitting in a lot of meetings talking about strategy, because that for me is not what I'm uniquely good at. Here's what I am uniquely good at, and here's some examples of that. So I think getting really confident in your values and not being afraid to speak to them, because the right people will resonate with that and will give you a shot for sure.
Interesting. So the book, Design Your Life, are these diagrams that you're showing, are they in worksheets, are they in the book?
So this, and I'm really glad you said that too, there's actually a second book that was just published called Designing Your Work Life. This specific tool is in this second book. I did not want to steal the thunder of the first book, all the tools and exercises, because I know that's going to be a book club feature. But everything that I'm talking about, all of these concepts will be in that first book. And there's a website as well, lots of tools and activities there. Definitely so much out there on the web. If you do a Design Your Life search, you'll find lots. Yeah.
One more question, or do you want to hold it till the end?
We can do one more.
Okay. The person asks, is this book mostly addressing people from developed or Western countries? Does it have, or did it consider cultural aspects?
There are some definite global examples. So it does talk about, it's not just a US-centric book. I think there could be more examples, quite honestly. I really do, but it's not completely US-centric.
Great.
Any other?
Not right this second, but if folks want to continue to put things in chat, we'll come back to the end. Thanks, Erica.
Yeah, so when you think about this, all of this, and again, when we approach our careers, oftentimes we're so busy doing that we don't have the time to sort of step back and think about our lives in different ways. Taking time to reflect, taking time to talk to other people. I mentioned just a short moment ago that telling our story is really important, understanding how to tell our story, and then also understanding how to listen to others' stories. I think that's something that's really key as well. So as we move forward, thinking about next steps, number one, starting where you are. And I think the first true successful step when thinking about designing your life is really acceptance. I've worked with people that we are so hard on ourselves. I've worked with people, mid-career changers. I should have known this. No. Again, everything that we've done up until this point, we can use moving forward. So starting where you are, and then being curious. I think this can help, especially the second part, being curious. This can be really impactful, especially if you're in a spot in your life right now where you are overwhelmed, where you are frustrated, where you're feeling stuck. I think curiosity can be an incredibly powerful way to shift out of that mindset I know when I'm in that space, sometimes it's all I can see and it's all I can feel is that complete overwhelm. My brain shuts down. I'm not able to actually cognitively change. But shifting and reframing to a mode of curiosity, I wonder what I can learn from this role. I wonder how I might be able to redesign the role I'm in right now. I think oftentimes we think I just have to leave this job. I have to get away from this position. But sometimes we might be able to make some small redesign tweaks that can make our position a little bit more tolerable until we can make a bigger change. So being curious, I wonder what I'm really learning from this. I wonder what might happen if I pretended that I was in a stage play for the rest of the week and I was simply playing a role. I've had to do that, right? I've been in incredibly stressful roles. How might I approach this if I sort of remove all that emotional angst and I simply approach this with, I'm going to go at this with a theatrical point of view. What's really going to happen today? What am I going to learn from that vantage point? Trying stuff. That's the action bias of a designer. I think something else that I see a lot is when we're thinking about a career change or when we're thinking about that next step, we have a tendency to sort of stay in front of our computer, work on our resume. Erica, will you look at my resume? Sure, but it's 20% of getting that job, as we all know. It's not about the resume. It's about getting out there and it's about trying things. If you are curious about whether or not you would like to run a bakery, go walk into a bakery. Well, maybe not right now, but talk to someone who's doing something that you are interested in doing. I'm really interested in learning more about photography. So I talk to people that I know that take good photographs and I say, hey, can I talk with you about your approach? I want to try that. So trying things, taking that, getting away from the computer and getting out, having that bias towards action. Reframing problems, I talked about that in terms of being curious, but that also is just really thinking about what are your beliefs that might be ingrained really deeply that you might want to let go of as you're moving forward. And then this is my very, very favorite one. Bill Burnett and Dave Evans have done a series of sort of COVID updates on YouTube around sort of design thinking in this current landscape. And one of the things that they mention in those series is setting the bar low. And what that means, it doesn't mean that we don't want to do a good job or we don't want to approach something in a positive way, but setting the bar low really means be kind to yourself right now. We're not going to figure all of this out in a day, in an hour. I would love to start my own business. I would love to have a website. I would love to write a book. I would love to do all these things. Am I going to do that in a week? No, because life happens. And there are some days right now that I don't want to get off the couch. It's just hard. And that's okay. We need to allow ourselves the time to sit on the couch, to be with our family, to be present in our moments, and then, pick up a book and read one chapter and learn about one new thing every day. I know that when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, I say one action, do one task, and then put it down, take a break, go for a walk, get some fresh air, but set that bar low and be kind to yourself because we're all truly in this together. And what I love about what I've done in this work and with all the people that I work with, and again, I've worked with nuclear engineers on aircraft carriers. I've worked with young kids in school. I've worked with consultants and people that fix airplanes. And we're all trying to figure it out. We're all struggling with the same things. So giving ourselves some empathy and just being willing to talk to people and willing to try stuff. That's really it in terms of the presentation. I know we're a little bit early, so there's plenty of time for questions. I would love to know if there's anything else that I can support all of you with.
That's great. I do have another question, and please go ahead and put some more in the chat if there are some. And actually, I think I have a few questions. So the first one is, the person wants to work part-time, but is having a hard time finding such positions while seeing many full-time positions that they could do. How can this person convince the hiring manager to look at him or her and then hire him or her?
Yeah. So I have seen, and this has actually happened for myself too, if there's a way that you can create a job, something that I have found success with is if I've looked at a position or if I've looked at a job or if I've done job shadowing, if I've called someone and maybe it's a full-time job, but I've called someone and I've said, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I'd love to shadow you. for a week or for a day or for whatever's realistic. First of all, you're creating that relationship. You're learning a little bit more about the reality, because I think something that I'm a big fan of is seeing what an actual job looks like. You know, so many times there's a title on a page or a job description, but I'm like, but what do you really do all day? So getting that experience, asking for that job shadow, because people like to invite you into their world, right? And maybe it's a virtual world right now, but people like to invite you into your virtual world. Spend some time with that person. And then what I think can be really helpful is, how can you be useful in this situation? Hey, you know what? I see that you're looking for a full-time position. I would love to be able to learn a little bit more about this. I would be able to offer you 20 hours doing this, and maybe design a new way or a new approach to this job. I think just because things are written as they are doesn't mean that we can't rewrite them or redesign them. I often think anytime we can be useful or provide ideas on how to be useful in new ways, sometimes people have been open to that. I did that at a job probably about 10 years ago now. I was hired on as a temp, and I could not work full time. I was coming off of some health stuff, and I couldn't work full time. I had this temp job. It was 3 days a week, and it was a very specific time period. And I said, hey, I would love to. I see that you have a need for someone to redesign this new hire curriculum. I would be happy to do it this way, 3 days a week. I can do it permanently. What do you think? I know you're looking for full-time, but here's what I can offer you. But because they had already seen my work, I had already sort of proven myself to them, and I had taken action, I was able to create that job for myself. So see if you can create it for yourself.
Great. I just want to remind everybody that your slides will go up online tomorrow, and then this video recording will go up in about 10 days. So I know if you're curious about just seeing a recap, you can certainly do that at the Alumni Exchange website. You had mentioned something at the beginning, Erica, or you mentioned 3 things at the beginning: approach, the challenge differently, changing and reframing, and then what was the next one the person's asking you to repeat?
I'm not sure which one can you say that part again? Which one again?
So the question is, you mentioned 3 things at the beginning: approach the challenge differently, changing and reframing, and then what was the next one?
Was it the empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing?
I think that was it. If not, the person in chat, please tell us, but that's what I think.
You can email me and I can see if I can think about what I said.
Okay, great. Erica, would you mind sharing with us what was your biggest challenge in your own career and how you overcame it?
Ooh, my biggest challenge. So I think, and this is probably something, again, I'm very open about my challenges. I studied film as an undergrad. I grew up in a very creative house, and I never thought that I belonged in the business world because I didn't understand. Again, I go back to that math. One of the reasons why I chose my humanities major was truly because I did not like math, and math did not like me. So I stumbled into it. I chose my major as an undergrad because I remember talking about it with my parents, and they said, pick something that will get you out of bed for an 8 a.m. class. We don't care what it is, but you need to go to class and you need to learn how to go to class. So I did that, and I truly have stumbled my way through my career. And I have had an incredible amount of ebbs and flows. I've been divorced. I've had health issues. If you name it, I've dealt with it. And what that has created for me is an incredible gratitude for resilience. And I know those words like gratitude and resilience, some people are like, ugh. But what I mean by that is I've always had a hunger for learning. And my challenge has probably been self-imposed because I've given myself a lot of limitations. I've said, oh, I can't do that. I don't have the right pedigree. I don't have an MBA. I don't have this. But what I do have, I've realized what got me out of that way of thinking was realizing what I do have to offer. I do have very unique strengths. All of you on the call, you have very unique talents and strengths. And I think the joyful thing about my own career has, especially within the last 5 years, I've been very intentional about changing my career so that it lines up with my values. My bank account is a little bit smaller, but my stress is lower and my health is so much better. And to me, when I think about my maker mix, that blend is much better for me. Smaller place to live. I live in a smaller place, but I'm much, much happier. I have more time with my family and my friends. And I think it takes a lot of courage sometimes to come to those decisions for yourself. But I know that that's what I did. But it's always a challenge every day.
It's really an excellent example of how the book works and how you're leading by example in that sense.
Yeah, I try and take my own advice.
No, it's great. Well, so this actually, the next question is appropriately placed, because as you're talking, I was thinking from a career coaching aspect, you must be so excellent in that because you've had such a wide variety of experiences. So the question is, in your work as a career coach, what are your top three challenges clients bring to you?
Yeah. So I think my top three challenges. So one challenge, people come to me. In fact, I'm working with a very high level executive actually on the East Coast. She has a very high powered job and she wanted like a list of new jobs like in a week. Like I need to know what I'm going to be applying for next week, but it's not about finding a job. I truly think real career coaching it's holistic. It's not separate from who we are. I think we have to do some of that internal work. And I think sometimes we are so socially conditioned to follow some shoulds that it can be really hard to really do that reflection. So that's a challenge. I see that people are looking for, I need to know what job I need to apply for. So my first question is, we're not starting with that right question. The right question really is, tell me what you want out of your life. What do you value in your life? And how do you define success for yourself? Because I think that question can really lead to a lot of joy finding. Because success, I think if we get below that, we learn a lot about ourselves. So that's, oh my gosh, how many challenges? One or two. I think another challenge is, I think not realizing truly the power of relationships. I have in my own life, especially too, I've been very lucky in that I've been invited to do jobs because of my relationships. And I think I see a lot of people sitting behind the computer and not really having those conversations. I met last week in the backyard of an old boss of mine. I worked with her many years ago. We had coffee 6 feet apart, and I said, "How's your life? What are you doing in your work?" And she told me, and she asked me, and then at the end of that, she said, "Ooh, I would love to have you come in and do a session with my team. That would be great." So that led to that. So I think I see people not really leaning on the power of their relationships. I think that there's a lot. I think we're all here to help each other out. I really do. Another challenge, again, spending probably too much time on our resumes. It's not about the resumes. Resumes are good. I'm not saying they're not good, but getting away from the resume and really being willing to think about what you value.
And the critical thinking aspect. Yeah.
Yes, critical thinking for sure.
Lots of people are thanking you for being so transparent and sharing your personal experiences. So let me add my thanks to that too. It's really valuable as part of this conversation. Another question. The person says, I've been in the fitness field forever. With the virtual world opening up during COVID, I want to start a coaching mentoring program for up-and-comers. Any suggestions on how to grow and tap into this virtual world?
Yeah, so I think what I love about this virtual world is there are no limitations. There's no boundaries. Everything's global right now. And I think it's really right now about doing it. So I have some friends too, many of us that facilitate, like I do a lot of instructor-led training in person, but now I've had to pivot to do everything virtually. So I'm right there with you. I think learning some tools, like learning all about Zoom, learning all about the platforms, there's so much out there. And then simply like testing, getting a Wix website. And I know that one of the functionalities is you can set up a store, you can set up videos, and you can be up and online and selling recordings or resources within a week. And I think the differentiator, if you're interested in doing that, is being willing to not watch Netflix for a couple of nights and to do that work, right? I mean, that's, for me, I know that that's been the difference. There are weeks when I want to be on the couch or days and I just want to eat ice cream and watch Netflix, but I have to balance that with doing, taking that time to, again, paying attention to the people online that are doing the things that you're interested in doing and connecting with them, even virtual strangers reaching out. And again, not everybody might respond to you, but saying, hey, I really like what you're doing in this virtual space. I'd love to learn from you. I'd love to buy you a virtual Starbucks.
That's great. Next question. So how can design thinking help someone reframe a current job where they are unhappy but reluctant to leave given the current state of the economy?
Yeah, that's a really common one. And that's one that I've been in as well. Maybe not with COVID. I think that anytime I'm in that situation or I see people in that situation, I think it's really easy, especially if we've decided that something's really hard or we don't like it, it's really easy to sort of get stuck in that mindset. What has helped me flip the switch is when I look at what is this experience giving me? It's also like if you're in a relationship, it can be really easy it's really easy for me to look at Joe, my partner, and say, wow, you miss the hamper with your socks every time, but you also make me coffee in the morning. So if I can look at that experience and I can look for what am I learning from this? What is this giving to me? Maybe it's something as basic as this experience is giving me healthcare right now, and that's what I need. This experience is giving me the chance to learn some new skills. What has saved my life when I've struggled in a role is, yes, I have to do my job for a certain portion of the day, but are there other things that I can get exposure to while I'm there so that I can begin building a skill set for something else? So if I'm doing 8 hours of HR, let's say that I want to learn about finance. Can I go down the hall and talk to someone in finance and create some of those networks and relationships that will give me that bright spark that will carry me over the rest of the day? And I'm sorry it's getting so dark in my house. I forget earlier and it's raining.
It's the weather, yeah. So maybe a little bit of a change, but so what advice do you have for someone who's just out of college that's having trouble starting a career in our current economy?
Yeah. So if you can, that's a tough spot to be in, but it's also an exciting place to be in. And again, there's that reframing, right? It's really easy to say, oh my gosh, I'm stuck. I'm in this COVID landscape. The great thing that this gives you is you have the opportunity, and I think all of us are really benefiting from the fact that the pace has slowed down a little bit. So we've got a little bit more time to think. So what are some experiences that you can create for yourself? Can you create some internships for yourself? Can you design some experiences for yourself? Can you give yourself 3 goals? I want to learn about 3 different kinds of careers, and maybe put a plan together for those 3 things. I will tell you, as a hiring manager, if you came to me next year or the year after and you said, this is what I did during my time, I would be so impressed if you created your own experiences. And just because like a company doesn't offer a formal internship, that doesn't mean that you can't create a learning experience. You can give yourself some structure, and you can maybe write a journal, you could create a portfolio. I would choose 3 different avenues. One, I like to think anytime I'm sort of giving an assignment to someone, when I think of 3 different avenues, think of one thing that you could do that's very sensible, something that really aligns with your skills. Then maybe think of something that is really exciting and maybe something that you've always thought about. And then that 3rd option is completely blue sky thinking, something completely crazy zany. Really getting creative, maybe exploring all of those and creating something for yourself.
So interestingly, this might be the same. It might be the same answer. The next, and I think this is probably our last question. So, what advice do you have for someone late in their career who wants to start over right now?
Ooh, to get really. And I'm saying this to you because I'm saying this to myself too, because I'm trying to get really clear on my story, because I've had 20 some years and trying to figure it out. I think what can be really helpful is doing some reflecting and looking back. I think of our careers as tapestries. We've got all these different threads that create the color and the texture and the vibrancy. So as you're considering your next move, really thinking about what is your story. Are there through lines that are the same that you want to continue in this new chapter? Like when I look at, I've worked in so many different environments, but the kind of work I've done has always been really, really centered on empathy and people and story. So when you think about your own experience, really take some time to reflect on what you've done, and ask people around you for their feedback as well, because I think sometimes we forget all the things we've done and learned. And then think about, now that you have that, what are those things that really resonate with your values, and which of those values do you want to take forward and which ones do you want to let go?
It's so much self-reflection and so much really understanding where you're at, what you value is what I'm taking, is one of the key takeaways of the many, many things you shared with us tonight.
This is a very squishy, I know it can sound squishy to do all this reflecting, but cognitively, self-reflection, that can really help our brain process. And it's amazing. If we stop working so hard and we actually get still, I'm amazed at sometimes what kind of bubbles up.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Well, Erica, thank you so much for this wonderful session and interactive discussion. We very much appreciate your time and sharing your knowledge with us. I just want to remind our participants that we do have a book. We're going to do this book in our Goodreads in our Alumni Association group. And again, the name of the book is Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. So we hope you will continue the conversation with us there. Next week, please join us on Wednesday, July 22nd at noon for our next Alumni Exchange event featuring UIC alumna Michelle Kaysen, who will present an interactive discussion on cleaning up our communities, lessons from the Environmental Protection Agency. You can find more information at go.uic.edu/alumni exchange. And again, Erica's slides will be up tomorrow, and we will have her presentation up in about 10 days. And of course, please be on the lookout for that quick survey. I do promise it's quick. Thank you again, Erica, for all of your time. Thank you to all of us for joining. Thank you to all of you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again in the UIC Alumni Exchange. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.